We're getting into the second part of the year as a sales professional. We're trying to really hit our goals and hit those targets. But what if the practices that you're doing on a day-to-day basis are actually not helping you to achieve that goal? In this episode, we're going to give you some ideas. I ain't going to tell you what it is yet. Check it out. Hey, everyone. Welcome to another great episode of the Sales Evangelist Podcast. I'm your host, Donald C. Kelly, the Sales Evangelist, and I'm so excited for another great episode. I'm so excited to be here with you today. And on this episode today, we have an amazing guest, and that guest, my friend, is Mr. Casey Stubbs. Now, Casey and I, we had a conversation, and you'll hear all about this in this episode, but I won't give it to you all. I won't give you all the details. But just know that we're going to focus on helping you to achieve that goal, whatever that is you're trying to hit. Because right now, you're in the middle of this cycle, right? You're trying to figure out how you're going to get the second half of the year to work and to hit the numbers. Listen, it's possible, very possible. There are things that you probably need to stop doing, and there's a practice that you probably should adopt, and we're going to go over that. If this is your first time listening to our podcast, know the show is here to help you 1 to 3x your sales pipeline and help you to increase your close rate. If you have been listening for a while, I appreciate you doing that, and I want you to go ahead and tell one more person about the podcast. I would love to mention our mastermind too, our sales mastermind. We have that starting up here in July. And if you'd like to join the mastermind, it's a place where a sales professional can join guidance, coaching, tips, and practice every single week with sales professionals to achieve your goals. Would love to have you. As Casey and I start the conversation, you'll get a chance to hear about his background, and you'll see how goal setting was critical for him and how this process that we're talking about in this episode, how it helped him, because he came through a really tough time in 2009. Ooh, good story. Check it out. Casey, welcome to the show.
Donald, thanks for having me.
Oh, I'm really looking forward to this. Really looking forward to the conversation around mindset and setting the right mindset in place. Because sometimes things happen, and you got to difficult moments happen. But Casey, is it okay if I tell them a personal story about our experience?
Absolutely.
So about an hour ago, Casey and I got on a call to record a podcast episode, and I did not hit record. I came into that conversation, I was flustered, trying to find my notes and everything, and I wasn't in the right mindset. So we went ahead and did this amazing interview, and it sounded awesome, but I forgot to hit record. But Casey, he was in the right mindset, was totally chill, and said we can record again. So now here I am, round 2 with Casey. So this episode means so much more to me now that, 1, Casey is really cool, but 2, the fact that mindset is important in so many different ways. So Casey, thoughts, feelings, questions?
Well, Donald, I remember when you were flustered, and I was thinking that and tell me if I'm wrong, but I felt like you tend to be a little bit on the perfectionist side of things. You really have to have things done a certain way. And I identify that because I'm the exact opposite. I'm like more of a quantity. Like I'd rather do 50 things and just get them all done. And so tell me if I'm wrong on that.
I think there's a combination in between there. I want to make sure I want to make sure things are done right. And there tend to be that component to it. But I'd probably say there's about probably a midway between that, between shoot off the hip as well as going into it. So
I think that's the perfect place to be. I'm on the other hand, which has worked really well for me, but sometimes your greatest strength is also your greatest weakness. And that is like, I'm just pushing, like I'm the guy that pushes the pile, it's like, okay, let's just get it done. We'll worry about the details later, and I know people that are much more detail oriented, and sometimes I get stressed working with them because they're so slow, and it's like, let's just do it. But then as I've experienced, I learned to appreciate that skill set.
Yeah, I think there's we have on my team, I'm the visionary. I think we talked about a little bit about this, both of us. I'm a visionary, and I have the detail people on the team that help us out. That, because if I go in too much in details, I find myself like I can't function. But there's that level of, I got to deliver for good stuff for my friends, man. And Casey are my friends. So I wanted to make sure I deliver that for you.
Yeah, it's kind of funny when you're working on a team. It's so great to really respect other people's perspectives and giftings and skills, because
Yeah.
I've got another friend on my team who's kind of like me. It's like we're just crazy. We're like, okay, we're gonna do this thing and let's go do it, and we don't even talk about details. It's like we're just ready to head out the door, and then I got the practical people on the team. It's like, whoa, wait a second, we
We
don't
can't
have any
launch yet.
we don't have anything done. We're not good. Like, what? And so it's like, oh, okay, I guess we need to plan a little bit. So it's good to have all sorts of people around us.
I agree, man. Well, talking about that, going into the mindset, we want to talk about accomplishing our goals. You got to have a mindset if you're trying to accomplish radical goals, accomplish your goals. Before we dive into that, though, I want you to take a moment. You talked about your team. Tell us a little bit more about what you're doing, man. What do you guys do?
So I create content and education for investors and traders on how to have success in the financial markets. And I started that business in 2009. It's a website called tradingstrategyguides.com. And I started in 2009 because I was a construction worker and I lost my job and I could not find work anywhere. A young married guy with a family, and so I had to figure out a way to put food on the table. And so I was like, okay, let's start this website and see what happens, and ended up working out pretty well for me, and I've been doing that ever since.
How did you learn the stuff, though? Like, you're a construction worker, not necessarily spending much time in the stock market. How did that come about?
Well,
How did you learn the
that's a
concept?
great story, and the I'm a believer that we learn from people around us, and we have great experiences from our mentors. And so my dad was investing and trading, and when I was a kid, I was a computer nerd, and that was because of my Aunt Mary. So my Aunt Mary worked at Intel, and she would bring computers home. And we're talking in the 80s, right? Like,
man,
it was so basic. Green screen, no hard drive, floppy disk. But she would bring computers home and get us on them, and we would start putting the pieces together and build them and all that stuff. So I knew computers, but then my dad was in the markets, and it just got started with online trading, and he was a boomer. You know what a boomer is? The older
the
generation.
baby boomers.
Yeah, and he's like, oh, I don't know how to use these computers, but I want to do these stocks on here. Will you show me how to get it set up? So I set up his computer for him. I helped him get the stock stuff figured out. And then as a result, I was like, oh, wow, stock trading, this is really cool. And so that was kind of like a hobby of mine. I was in high school. That was a hobby of mine for a good 10 to 12 years before I actually launched my business.
That's amazing. So this was fun, and like you're bringing your hobby into the real world with this. I'm interested in it, and I think this probably helps set the mindset components. And I want to go back and use your story there. The 2009, you set a goal. What was the goal that you set when you're out of work?
Well, the goal was food on the table.
That's it. Food on table. That's it. Just eat.
Yeah,
Just need
and
to eat.
it also, I kind of have just a built-in entrepreneur personality. It's just kind of like wired in me, and so I was always doing stuff on the side. So it's like, oh wow, this is an opportunity. And again, you don't always feel like it was an opportunity because it was back against the wall, kind of a high pressure situation.
Yeah.
But I just took stock of what I had, which wasn't a lot. I didn't have money, didn't really have equipment. I just had I had a little equipment. I had an old computer, an internet connection, and some skills. And I wanted to see if I could make it work.
Come on. I love it. I love it. So when it comes towards getting the right mindset, though, for this, you had that mindset. There's some of us out there, maybe not necessarily, we want to accomplish our goals, but there's a mindset that you need to have to achieve those goals. So one more time, again, we could set a mind, we might have a mindset for a goal, but then the mindset to achieve that goal. And I would like to take a moment and just go deeper into that. You mind talking to me about that? What's that mindset? What's the mindset that I need to have as a sales professional to achieve worthy goals? Maybe you can highlight 3 points and then we could tackle those.
Well, I think the first one for me is to expect setbacks, right? So just like when I was losing my job, to expect setbacks and not only expect them, but enjoy them. And I know that's a
Interesting.
little weird, but I enjoy them because I know that through them, I'm becoming a better person, right? It's like I'm removing the excess, kind of like the refiner's fire process. I know that as I'm going through the fire, that I'm getting better, I'm getting more skill, I'm getting stronger and building up my perseverance. And so that is a mindset to understand that I'm going to keep pushing through and I'm going to keep learning, and that this pain and discomfort that I'm going through is benefiting me. It's benefiting the people around me.
I love that. So the challenge that you're facing right now is temporary, and it's helping you to be able to benefit your growth later on. But how do you? I mean, in the moment, I mean, it's good to talk about that right now. But when I'm in a moment and I'm feeling that setback, it's kind of hard. How do I make sure that I can adjust to be able to think like that when I'm in that tough moment?
Well, that's the problem, is I don't think you can do it in the moment. I think you have to have that ahead of time, because
Yeah.
in the moment, if you're looking specifically at your problem and you're very short-sighted and if you don't see the you on the other side, it's like, okay, I'm just seeing the me now that's in pain. But when I'm going through it, I'm seeing the me that's like the sparkling version of me that's like all stronger. They talk about the hero's journey, right? Like,
Yeah.
when the hero goes through, he's battling his demons, but then when he comes out on the other side, he's like, it's a new beginning. It's a new person. Life is never the same after that.
Yeah. I think there is if we can have the vision of what we potentially could become, I think that's what helped. And as you're talking about it, I'm thinking about it from my perspective. I'm thinking of where I'm trying to go, understanding the challenges we're going through. My wife and I, every day we leave, we say be a 3%er, because I forgot we were here some numbers, like, around 3% of people, like, accomplish goals or go through hard times, or just be that 3%er. So every day we say that, as we're leaving the house. And I think if we can go into the day like thinking that 3%er, or thinking that that level of that I am going to face challenges, and that I know that I'm going to come through it. I don't know how, but I know I'm going to come through it. I think that's important. I think that ties back to why you're so successful, Ryan, Casey, excuse me, because you're looking at it from that bigger picture, that visionary standpoint. Like, this is where we're trying to go to. And you're not sweating about the details. The details will come, but when you do face those setbacks, ultimately where you're going to go. And there's an awesome book, Dan Sullivan and Ben Hardy, 10x is easier than 2x. And one of the concepts to talk about is that who, not how, right? You can always find the who to do the stuff. You don't need to worry about how to do it. Just get the right who, and they can do the details and things of that nature. So anyways,
that same concept was in Good to Great as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Get them on the bus. That's how he framed it. Get them on. Who's on the bus? Get the right guys on. Get the wrong guys off.
Yeah. And I think that's important. Again, go back to what you're setting here with that mindset. If I'm going to accomplish that goal, understanding those setbacks, being willing to work through the setbacks, and preparing before I get into that setback of what that vision is going to be like. I just find that amazing.
There's been certain situations in my life that I have had to make decisions before the event has actually happened. And because of that, I made the right decision, right?
Can you give us an example?
Well, so this is okay, if there's a confrontation or a conflict or a problem, I have to know what my decision is ahead of time. How will I decide that problem? So one great example is personal relationships, right? I know that if I have a problem on my team, I'm not going to bail on that relationship without following the due process, right? So there's been certain, you've heard it before, like companies blow up, partnerships dissolve, things happen. But if there's a process on how we're going to have a relationship, and that we're going to follow that, when there's a conflict that arises, I've already made my decision ahead of time because I know how I'm going to handle it. I am going to follow the process. Whereas I have seen other people because I was in the same situation. They're like, oh, this is ridiculous. I'm out. I'm done. But because I had made a commitment to follow the process, I followed the process and I went through it, and I was able to stick through the situation and come through the fire really well on the other side, all because I had the decision ahead of time.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that. I think, yeah, I if there's one thing you took away from this episode so far, guys, like just get that idea, set it before you get into that situation, before you get to that, before you face that challenge. And I think this applies to like that objection, right? If I'm a seller, before I get that objection, or before I find myself where it's a rough day and I didn't get anything in the day, like do I have the plan set, or an idea, or that vision set before I get to that moment, how I'm going to handle that? I like it.
Yeah,
That's
that
really
can
well.
apply to all kinds of different things, like the day I don't feel like getting up to make my sales calls, or, what am I going to do? Or, personal development. I don't want to do my workout today. How do I feel? Well, I've already made my decision. This is what I'm doing. I'm not going by feelings.
Let's go. That's it. Love it. So that's the first thing. Maybe what's the second thing we need to be conscious of as we are working towards our tough goals, or our goals in general?
So I think being aware of the short term versus the long term, right? Because in every big vision, and every, if you're a sales professional and you're trying to hit your goals, there's always smaller things along the way, right? And the smaller things are really the things that get it done, but maybe they don't get celebrated or recognized as much. But I always try to give myself small mile markers along the way. I actually like to hike, and so I set a big goal of doing a 70-mile hike, and
My goodness,
it was a lot of fun up in the woods all by myself, backpacking. But along this hike, they have mile markers. They put a concrete mile marker. And so I'm looking at the big vision. I got to hit the 70 miles. But then every time I hit a new mile, it's like, okay, there's one down. Let's look for that next mile marker. And if the mile marker's like knocked over or something, you start to panic. Where's that 1 mile marker? Where is it? Oh, wait, it just got covered up in the bushes. It's still there. I'm good.
Yeah. We did a hike this spring with some of the kids from church, and it was a 15-mile. And yeah, same thing. Some of those hash weren't on the trees, but it was just like brushed down, or a tree fell, and you're like, ah!
I got off course one time.
And that's all it takes, man. That's all
Yeah.
it takes.
Oh, yeah. I ended up having to go around this road, and I found my way back on. But yeah. So that's great application for mindset and business. Everybody gets off course, right? Okay. You need your short mile markers, but everybody gets off course.
Yeah.
But you got to get back on.
I love it. Get back on, set those course. All right. So we got the the perspectives there. We have some mile markers. What else should we be cognizant of when it comes towards these goals, to set the right mindset?
Well, I think one of the things, again, is just changing your perspective too. Always trying to have gratitude, trying to look at things differently from a different perspective. I remember in our first conversation, I brought the point about how disappointed I was for making $250,000, and it's almost laughable when, like, if I was to run into a guy at a coffee shop and it's like, yeah, I'm really depressed, I made $250,000, but because I had set up this big goal to make $1 million and I didn't hit my goal, I was really depressed. But it took some time for me to process and realize that it was actually a great accomplishment. But perspective is literally everything. I could think I have the worst life in the world, and you look at me on the outside as, look at this guy, how wonderful it is. Like, we have to really work at developing good perspectives.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more on that. Get the right perspective, and that will help you tremendously. How do you go about getting that perspective right? What are some things that you do to be able to help set that perspective before you find yourself, before you even make the goals?
So that's a great question. Great question. And I think part of it is just experience in life. and having mentors, learning from people that went before you, people that paved the way. So when I say perspectives, I know that for me, I love to travel, right? I love to travel out of the country. And when you go to other nations and you hang out with people, you go up into, the mountains of people where they don't have electricity and they, don't have running water, and you spend some time there, like that changes your life and it changes your perspective. I'm not saying every salesperson has to do that, but I'm just saying it wouldn't hurt, like I've actually taken my entire family, including my children, because in the United States, we have such a limited perspective on what life really is. And so the way that we expand that is to see things from other people's minds and other people's eyes.
Yeah. Oh man, I couldn't agree with you more. I grew up in Jamaica, and sometimes you go back. I mean, they have a lot of things now, but it wasn't until probably the last maybe 20 years or so, where they in the countryside had everyone had electricity or things of that nature. But it was always like a mind like always a good readjustment when you went to the countryside and you would see people doing things, way of life that they did like a long time ago, and it caused you to just enjoy and reset, so to speak.
It's always the joke about American problems, like, oh man, my hot tub only went up to 97 degrees today. I'm really stressed out. I'm flustered.
I'm flustered. Dish. Man, you're so right on that, man. Set the right perspectives. It makes such a big difference. Listen, we could go on for days, it seemed like, to talk about this. But if there's one major takeaway, one major piece of advice you want folks to leave this episode with when it comes towards setting that right mindset, when it comes to achieving your goals, what's that one major piece of advice?
I think the biggest thing is to realize that you're probably wrong a lot. And if you have that mindset, you're willing to learn. And I think that realizing that you're probably wrong a lot is good with humility. And I love the fact that I have gone through a lot and have made probably 99% more failures than I've had successes. Through each one of those, I've learned a ton of things. So just keep trying new stuff, keep moving forward, and don't ever give up.
I love it, man. Talk to us about ways that people can get in touch with you. Maybe they want to connect with you, learn about what you're doing. Maybe some of the trading stuff is enticing to them.
Well, I love to connect with people about anything, whether they're in sales or because I'm a business owner, so I know a lot about all that. And also in the investing side of thing, my website, tradingstrategyguides.com, has all my contact information. And I did release a book on trading recently called The Complete Trading System, which is also available on my website as well.
Love it. We're going to go ahead and put that in the show notes. The Complete Trading System. Is it on Amazon as well, mainly through their website? It
is. Yep. The link is on. The link to Amazon is on my website. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll put that in the show notes so folks can get access to it and check it out. But listen, Casey, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show today. Thanks for your insights. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
That was Casey Stubbs, and I highly recommend you go and connect with him. You can find his book and all the details in the show notes below. I love the story. I love how he's adopted this mindset concept, and I love how this mindset has helped him to achieve his amazing goals. I mean, think about a part where he's talking about hitting $250,000. Like, man, some of us are probably thinking that'd be great to have that number just once. He needed it in 10 days. It's fascinating. But mindset is important. And if it worked for Casey, I know it can work for you as well. I'd love to hear about you as well. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. And if you're curious about our sales mastermind and see how this can help you, go to the salesevangelist.com mastermind, apply. We take 12 individuals for our mastermind per cohort and would love to have you. Again, the salesevangelist.com/mastermind. As always, I want you to thrive. I want you to succeed. I want you to raise your level of thinking. I want you to go out and do big things. See you on the next one.